Welcome to Successful Philanthropy. I'm your host, Jean Shaffer. This show is designed to highlight the work of leaders here in the United States and then beyond. Today with us, we have a fascinating guest. Many of you know her. Her name, Julia Haart, and Julia is best known for her Netflix miniseries, My Unorthodox Life. She's also a philanthropist, a mother, businesswoman, and fashion designer. Let's all welcome Julia Haart. And Julia, it's such a pleasure to have you on Successful Philanthropy. And I want to start first with your mini-series. How did you get involved in that, and why did you do it?
It's actually a television show. We've already filmed 2 seasons, so it's not a mini series. It's a TV show on Netflix. And it was a very difficult decision to make. I really wanted to share my story because I thought it could inspire other women to create their own stories and change their lives and understand that it's never too late to become the best version of yourself or to change the things about your life that make you really unhappy. And of course, it's very frightening in today's day and age to make yourself so open and vulnerable, with social media and the fact that you can be truly anonymous. People say a lot of very terrible things, and it's very frightening to be so open. But I did it for a reason, and we've received over 700,000 messages in the last 2 years between my show and the book of women who have shared their stories with us, who've left abusive communities or abusive marriages or relationships, who've started businesses, who have taken their lives and realized that it's never too late to change. And so I'm really grateful that this show is engendering so much movement and change in other people's lives.
And Julia, for our audience that doesn't know your story, tell us a little bit about it.
I grew up in a very fundamentalist, ultra-Orthodox Jewish community, and I'm going to be very clear. What I'm going to say now is not relevant to 99.999% of Jews and Jewish communities. This is the very extreme ultra-Orthodox, and you find the same rules that apply to me and my community apply to extreme Islam, extreme Christianity, any fundamentalist community. In the end, the rules are all the same, and they tend to be very unfriendly to women. So I grew up in a world where your biology defines your destiny. If you're born a woman, your purpose in life is already set from the minute you're born. You are supposed to be a wife and a mother, subservient, silent, and obedient. I grew up in a world where men say every morning from the day that they're old enough to speak until the day they die, when they wake up in the morning, they say, Moda ani lefanecha, which means, thank you, God, for giving me life. The third prayer that they say every morning from the time they're 3 years old enough to speak, until literally the day they die is, Baruch atah Hashem, Elokeinu melech haolam, shelo asani isha, which means, thank you, God, for not making me a woman. I was not only not allowed to read secular literature or go to college or really be educated, I wasn't even allowed to read religious literature because Nashim Daitin Kalos, which means a woman's mind is light. I was taught that I am incapable of understanding and grasping deep and esoteric subjects, and that in the Talmud, which is written in Aramaic, boys are taught Aramaic, girls are not. And of course, I taught myself Aramaic. There's a phrase in the Talmud that says, a man who educates his daughter is teaching her prostitution. So basically, in my world, an educated woman is a dangerous one. So I left. I didn't have an education. I didn't go to college. My entire life, I was told that my purpose is to be silent and subservient, and that my husband is my master, and that my purpose in life is to serve him and have his babies. And at 42, I walked out the door with my children and started a shoe brand a month later, although I didn't know a single human being in the outside world. I knew nothing about making shoes. And I didn't know about PR or marketing or merchandising or logistics, contracts, nothing. I'd never gone to a bar. I'd never been to a club. I'd never gone on a date with a man I chose. And so I always tell people I'm a time traveler. I went from the 1800s to the 21st century. And then a month later, started a shoe brand. Within 9 months, was being sold in multiple stores. And within 2 years, became the creative director of La Perla, and from there went on to transform EWG, which was a modeling agency, into a talent as media conglomerate, and recently have started a lingerie brand, Plus Body by Julia Haart, which basically turns shapewear on its head, and for the first time makes shapewear that you're not ashamed to be seen in.
Now, before we go more into all of your businesses, because I find it very fascinating, let's talk a little bit about your life as a woman's activist. I think that's really, really important. And women want to know, well, I'm in a situation where I feel oppressed. How do I get out of it and what do I do? And I think you're a living example of someone who successfully changed their life. They weren't in a life that was right for them, and you changed. What about your work as a woman's activist now?
Well, you know, my entire life, I lived in a community where my body was not my own. And my body was something that I had to hide and be ashamed of. And I was taught my entire life that it's my responsibility that men don't sin. Men can't control themselves in my world, nor do they have to. It's our sin if they think inappropriate thoughts. It's our sin if they have any sexual fantasies about us. So as a woman in my world, I wasn't allowed to sing in public or dance in public or wear pants or uncover any part of my body. I was told that I have to sleep with a hair covering and my whole body covered because the walls of my house should not see my nakedness. Otherwise, I wasn't going to have pure and beautiful children. So when you look at it, when they repealed Roe versus Wade in the United States, that's when the first time in my life I became politically active, because I've been in a world where your body isn't your own. I've been in a world where any kind of birth control, although not completely, illegal, let's say, you are ostracized and there's so much societal pressure not to use it. I don't know exactly how many nieces and nephews I have because my siblings don't speak to me since I've left my community, but it's somewhere between 39 and 49. We're trying to figure it out. But, people have multiple babies. And I remember when I was in my 30s and I was in a hospital in Atlanta giving birth to my daughter, Miriam. And I burst out crying when the doctor came in and he said, "Oh, what's wrong? Is it the afterbirth? Are you in pain?" And I just looked at him and I said, "I'm going to be in this hospital bed every year for the rest of my life." I've been pregnant 10 times. I had 6 miscarriages and I have 4 children. And I know what it's like to not be in control of your body, to feel that you don't have a right to choose. And so when I saw the 21st century, the United States, repealing these laws, putting us back into a world where what's going to be next? Are they going to repeal birth control? Are they going to force us back into the kitchen? And so I become, a very verbal and vocal political activist to bring the country back to where we started. I've met with Gloria Steinem, Nancy Pelosi. I'm on the board of the ERA committee that's finally, hopefully, we'll get the ERA passed this year. I've hosted a lot of fundraisers in my house. And interestingly enough, and I remember thinking like, wow, my life just gets more and more unusual, let's just put it that way, or unorthodox. I led a women's march in Washington, D.C. for women in Iran who have literally, I gave up my family, my friends, my life, everyone I knew to be free, to have the right to educate myself, to enable my children to be educated. These women are giving up their lives. They're being poisoned. They're being imprisoned. They're being beaten and tortured. For what? For the very terrible crime of saying, I want to be educated. I want to be able to uncover my body. I want control and autonomy in my own life. So I led a march in America in support of women in Iran. And I've done a bunch of events as well, because in the end, it's all the same. Fundamentalism is all the same. All these religions tell women the same thing. Your body is shameful. You're responsible for men's behavior. Hide yourself, cover yourself. Don't go out. Don't get educated. Don't go to work. Ask your husband for permission. And I'm not okay with that. I will not let the United States turn into Muncie.
And I'm not okay with that either. I'm involved with one charity, New York Women's Foundation, that deals specifically with women. I'm involved with many charities, but that's the New York Women's Foundation is all about empowering women out of poverty and working for a just and equitable life for all women. Now, I admire so much what you've done in the arena of trying to help women, oppressed women, and not being afraid to speak out and stand up for women. I want to switch now to your life. You recently took a trip to the Ukraine, and then I think you went to Rwanda. What was that like, and why did you do that? I think it's absolutely wonderful that you did it, but why did you do it?
So thank you. Some of the most incredible experiences that I've ever had in my life, to be honest. And um, this is the second time I went to Ukraine. I went to Ukraine the beginning of the year in January. I drove an ambulance from Slovakia all the way up to the front lines in Bakhmut when Bakhmut was being bombed. My team and I, we narrowly missed twice getting blown to bits. So that was very, emotional and powerful. And the reason that I went the first time was to bring aid. I donated ambulances. We brought medical supplies, IFAX kits, clothing, hats, electrical devices that they could use because at that time Russia had knocked out their entire electric system. So it was winter and it was dark and it was cold. And came back again. I went now recently with a group of people, a different group of people. And what we did this time is we opened the first ever women's shelter in Ukraine that is specifically targeting women who have been either sexually trafficked or sexually abused, or children who have been kidnapped and sexually trafficked and abused. And we're hoping that this center is a prototype and that people will take that as an example and make more of these all over the country. I went and I raised awareness for a group called Halo, because what ends up happening, I mean, it's so shocking. When Russia gets kicked out of a town or city, so for example, when Ukraine, gets Russia out, Russia doesn't just leave and be like, okay, bye guys. They leave weapons of mass destruction behind. And they are very specific in when they plant these landmines. They target children's schoolyards, playgrounds, and farms. And Halo and the police all over the country, the Kiev police, I met with them and, they showed us how they do it. Basically what they're going from farm to farm, from village to village, from city to city, and clearing landmines. Because 45% of the agriculture that is currently in Ukraine is untouchable and unusable because there are landmines there. And if you think of the fact that Ukraine is the breadbasket of Europe and also feeds parts of Africa and parts of Asia, 45% less production can cause starvation and tremendous food insecurity all over the world. So this is a really serious issue. I also raised awareness for a group called Superhumans, which is creating bionic limbs for soldiers. And I met with all of these soldiers who are working so hard because basically your mind activates the limbs, right? So you have to practice that. And they're just working around the clock. And when I asked them why they're working so fast, why they're so eager to get it done, I thought they were going to say, because I want to go back to my family. I want to restart my life. I want this. I want that. The answer I got every single time, without exception, is I want to learn how to use these limbs so I can go back to the front lines and fight with my brothers. And I met with women who had escaped being sexually trafficked, and who managed to, get some of these rings arrested. I met with the Nobel Prize winner, Lesja, who has been documenting all of Putin's truly frightening and horrific war crimes. And my purpose going this time was to raise awareness. Everywhere I went, everyone I spoke to, they said, Julia, tell our story. Tell our story. Because, we get accosted with such a proliferation of data, information, news, stories, that we become almost immune. And I've seen people be like, oh my God, Ukraine again, you just get bored and tired of hearing it. But they're living this every day. And why I went now twice is because to me, they embody what I think his name was Emiliano Zapata said. He was a Mexican revolutionary. And he said, I would rather die. I would rather, 1 second. Okay, I got it. I would rather die on my feet than live on my knees.
Which is so true. And I know that your work is very important. And to the people of the Ukraine, we want to do everything we can as Americans and as people of this world to help end this war quickly. We are with you, and we know you're suffering greatly. And hopefully this war will end sooner than later. And recently I interviewed George Pataki, who has a big initiative in the Ukraine. He's doing a lot of work there. Julia, it's wonderful to hear that you've been there twice, that you're trying to help out. And I don't think that the people of the Ukraine should feel that they're alone. We are with them. We are trying to support them.
That's the most important thing.
And we are there for you, and we want to help you. And God bless you all. And hopefully this is going to end soon. Now, Julia, I want to switch now to your career as a businesswoman, because you said you grew up.
Mind if I pop in and just talk about Rwanda for 1 second?
Absolutely.
Would that be okay? Because
Rwanda, yes.
it's something that I would love women to be involved in. I went with a group called the Body Agency Collective. And these are things that you just don't think about in America. But there are millions and millions of women in Africa who cannot go to school when they menstruate, who cannot go to work when they menstruate because they don't have maxi pads, they don't have tampons, they don't have anything to use to be able to become mobile when they're menstruating. They stay home. And so we went to remote villages and we brought menstrual cups that can be washed and reused, and we showed people how to utilize them. We also did some sex ed classes and talked about women's sexual pleasure, because that's something that's pretty taboo in many, many parts of the world. Certainly where I came from, and certainly, you know, we went into Africa, and when we started talking about vibrators and clitorises and women's sexual pleasure, everybody's eyes lit up, because you should have the right to have a full life and freedom in every direction, in financial freedom, sexual freedom, personal individual freedom. This is my purpose in life, is to help freedom grow. I know that sounds really dorky, but I don't take freedom for granted. I had to fight for my freedom. And so that's why I support Ukraine. That's why I went to Rwanda, because these people are putting their lives on their line for freedom. I met with women in Rwanda who have been given 10 cents to start a business, and they buy a chicken. And with that chicken, that chicken lays eggs, they sell the eggs, they buy more chicken. More chickens equal more eggs, more money equals land, land equals farms. 70% of the small shareholder farmers in Rwanda are women, although they only own 20% of the land that they're farming, but we'll get there another day. So if anyone is interested, go to bodyagency.com and donate what we call a kit that has all of the, accoutrements that you need, underwear that can be rewashed that you could stick fabric into. And it's really an incredible organization. And I strongly recommend that people support and help women in Rwanda, because they are fighting every day for financial freedom, for rights, for the right to empower themselves, their children, their lives, their communities. And when they get money, when they succeed, they share it. It's incredible. It's this communal, it's it's mind-blowing. They all help one another.
Important. And can you give us that website once more for
Yes.
those watching who want?
I'm going to show you on Instagram.
Okay,
it's Body Agency. The Body Agency.com,
or is that bodyagency.com?
The Body Agency, and I think let's look at their profile. It's I think if you go to thebodyagency, then you'll find it. And it's run by this incredible woman named Kate Roberts. She's brilliant. And it does so much good for women all over the world. So please donate, give a dignity kit, and you will be surprised and awed by how extraordinary and resourceful, determined, and strong and courageous these women are. It's just mind-blowing, just mind-blowing.
Yes, and there are so many wonderful charities around the world that help women, children, people in war areas. And as Julia Haart is saying, get out there, find a charity, become active, and do something, as she's done and as many of you watching the show have done. Now, Julia, I'd like to switch to your business life, because you grew up, you mentioned, in a very oppressed environment, and then all of a sudden you became a businesswoman. How did you do that? I find it remarkable, and I find it wonderful and inspiring.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I have an insane work ethic. I literally work 20-hour days. You know, people know that they could call me at 4 a.m. because I will be up, and there's no shortcuts, right? You know, it took me 8 years to plan my escape. I decided I wanted to leave my community at 35. I didn't walk out the door until 42. So I educated myself. I became a voracious reader. And I think my ignorance was a blessing, because I didn't realize how crazy it was to start a shoe brand without knowing anyone in fashion or knowing about PR or marketing. I figured, hey, I can time travel. If I can time travel, I can start a shoe brand. And I'd been designing and drawing my entire life. And I had so much inside of me that I wanted to come out. And so I just went for it. And of course, it was extraordinarily difficult. And I faced impediments at every turn. And there were moments when there's just no way this company is going to survive. But it was success or death to me, because I couldn't go back. And so the only way to not go back was to succeed. And so I had to succeed. And so I just did everything in my power, and I didn't give up. And to all the naysayers and to the people who told me I couldn't, I went blah, 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 looked at myself in the mirror and told myself I could.
Smart woman, very smart woman. Now, Julia, you have a shapewear company that you just began, and we'd like to see some photos of the shapewear.
Sure.
Looking at you, you look fabulous in it.
Thank you. So that's the beauty of his shapewear. In all shapewear, Spanx, Skins, Wolford, you name it, has always been beige, white, and black. And that's because when you dye a material and then you stretch it, what happens? You get those nasty white lines, right? You get those white lines, the pattern becomes distorted. That's why when you see someone wearing something a little too small and it stretches, you see those lines. It's just very ugly. And shapewear, it's a compression garment. It's very thick, and it's meant to stretch, right? It comes in a box this big, and then you got to stretch it out, and it sucks you back in. The minute that happens, you get those lines, and you get the distorted color and the distorted pattern. So we had to figure out a new way to color material that wasn't dyeing, because dyeing doesn't work. So we created this system. It's called Power Bond 2.0. It's a heat fusion process. We heat fuse our clothes. We do not dye them. And because of that, you can stretch it, you can pull it, you can move it in 1,000 directions. It doesn't budge. Additionally, I solved all the other things I don't like about shapewear. Shapewear is thick. And so women complain all the time that you have a kind of a terrible choice to make. Either you wear the shapewear and it smooths you and it flattens you and it tightens you, but it also makes you wider. Because think about it. You're putting on an additional layer of clothing, and it's thick. It could add 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch on each side. The minute you do that, you are adding almost a full size up. I've had women tell me that they can't button their pants when they wear shapewear. Well, we realized if we can fuse color into fabric, what if we took all those layers of compression and put them into one thin layer? And that's what we did. So our shapewear is literally paper thin. It is not adding to your girth an iota. So you don't have to choose anymore between being lumpy and narrower or smoother and wider. Now you can be smooth and narrow simultaneously. And last but not least, we also put cup sizes in. So you know that, I mean, I don't know if you've ever worn shapewear, but for anyone who has ever worn shapewear, you know that you have two options. Either, shapewear is always sold by extra small, small, medium, large, extra large. No one sells it by cup size except for us. So you have two options. Either you get what we call pancake boob, right? It's shapewear, it's compression. So it's compressing your breasts, not a very appealing or attractive look. Or they just leave a hole where your breasts are and you have to put on a bra. So now you're wearing a bra and straps and shapewear and straps and the back. It's incredibly uncomfortable. It's certainly not user-friendly. And our shapewear is the first shapewear in the world that's sold by dress size and cup size simultaneously. So you can buy an extra large with a double D, an extra large with an F, an extra large with a B. Your body, your weight, your style. And because it's so beautiful, no one will know it's shapewear. So for the first time, women don't have to have that embarrassment, that humiliation of getting undressed. Because I don't know a single woman who wants to be undressed by anybody if they're wearing granny panties underneath. My shapewear, you take off your clothes and you see that underneath and you're like, lingerie, pretty. So we basically eliminated all the issues that shapewear had and made a product that I think women will really love and will help them feel confident and comfortable in their own skin.
I love it. Now,
I'm so excited about it.
and I'm excited for you. Julia, we're running out of time now, and I'd like to ask my guests, what advice do you give to young people? A woman maybe that is in a similar situation as you were in many years ago. Well, what advice? And then also to men, what advice do you give?
To me, the most important thing is to never allow anyone to tell you what you can and cannot do. And I think, especially for women, we're not taught to handle any kind of negative, we're very sensitive, many of us. Obviously, I don't want to speak for all women everywhere, but so many of us are not good with rejection. We're told, you're not good enough, you're not strong enough, you're not this, and we believe it. And what I want women to know, and men as well, is that nobody knows what you're capable of except for you. And even you're not going to know what you're capable of until you just stand up and try it. And to me, the most important thing is, I don't care what you know. I want to know how quickly you can learn new things, because we live in an ever-changing world. Technology every day completely transforms the world that we live in. And if you're not comfortable with the new, if you're not comfortable with learning new skills and constantly creating elasticity in your mind, you're not going to, it won't work. Be elastic, be creative, be open to new things, and don't let anyone tell you what you cannot do.
And I love that advice. It's all about believing in who you are and then going out there and taking chances and being strong. Of course, working
Make mistakes. You have to. It's part of the process. And you're going to make mistakes. You're going to do stupid things. People are going to put you down. I mean, the first time when I came up with underwear lace that was stretch, it'd never been done before, Lever's lace that was also stretch. The man who was producing it patted me on the head and told me, Julia, I've been doing this for X amount of years and you don't know what you're talking about. And then a year later, he calls me and says, thank you for saving my company.
Amazing. Julia, you've been a great, great guest. And I want to say thank you. Thank you for being an inspiration to many others and also to someone like me. So thank you, and we'll have you back again. This concludes Successful Philanthropy. Our guest today, Julia Haart. She is best known for her mini-series on Netflix, My Unorthodox Life. She's a philanthropist, businesswoman, mother, and a fabulous person. I'm Jean Shaffer, your host. I'll see you next week.